What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world sits down for what should be a routine interview, only to find herself in the crosshairs of a host who seems determined to tear her down? What happens when years of built-up tension finally explode on live television, creating one of the most shocking moments in daytime TV history? Today we're diving into the explosive confrontation that left Jennifer Lopez storming off The View, set after a heated dispute with none other than Whoopi Goldberg herself. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when egos clash and professional boundaries are crossed. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because you're not going to want to miss a single second of this unbelievable drama. The atmosphere in the View studio was already thick with tension before the cameras even started rolling. Jennifer Lopez had arrived for what her publicist had described as a light promotional interview for her latest project, but the production staff could sense something was off. Whoopi Goldberg had been unusually quiet during the pre-show briefing, her trademark smile nowhere to be found as she shuffled through her note cards with what could only be described as barely contained irritation. "Good morning, and welcome back to The View," Whoopi began, her voice carrying that familiar gravelly tone that millions of viewers had come to know over the years. "We're here with Jennifer Lopez, multi-hyphenate superstar, singer, actress, businesswoman, and apparently someone who has some very strong opinions about the entertainment industry." The other co-hosts, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and Sunny Hostin, exchanged glances that didn't go unnoticed by the studio audience. There was something in Whoopi's tone, a subtle edge, that suggested this interview was going to be anything but routine. "Thank you for having me," Jennifer responded, her smile bright, but her posture slightly defensive. She had been in the entertainment business long enough to recognize when someone was preparing to come for her, and every instinct she had was telling her to be on guard. "So, Jennifer," Whoopi continued, leaning forward slightly in her chair, "you've been in this business for what, 3 decades now? You've seen a lot of changes, worked with a lot of people. Tell us, what's your take on this whole conversation about authenticity in entertainment? Because there's been some talk, about performers who maybe, shall we say, aren't quite as genuine as they present themselves to be." The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Jennifer's smile faltered for just a moment before she composed herself. "I think authenticity is incredibly important, Whoopi. I've always tried to be true to myself and my roots, whether I'm performing, acting, or just being Jenny from the block." "Jenny from the block," Whoopi repeated, and there was no mistaking the sarcasm in her voice now. "Right, because nothing says authentic like a woman who grew up in the Bronx but now lives in a $60 million mansion in Bel Air. Tell me, when was the last time you actually visited the block?" The other hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Joy Behar, known for her own sharp tongue, looked genuinely surprised by Whoopi's aggressive approach. Sarah Haynes attempted to interject with a lighter question, but Whoopi cut her off with a raised hand. No, I want to hear this," Whoopi said, her eyes never leaving Jennifer's face, "because I think our viewers deserve to know who they're really looking at here. Are we talking to Jennifer Lopez, the authentic artist, or are we talking to a carefully constructed brand that's been marketed to us for 30 years? Jennifer's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. "I understand you might have some preconceived notions about me, Whoopi, but I can assure you that everything I've achieved has been through hard work and staying true to my values. I've never claimed to be anything other than what I am." "And what exactly is that?" Whoopi pressed, her voice growing louder. "Because from where I'm sitting, what I see is someone who's had more reinventions than Madonna, more relationship drama than a soap opera, and more business ventures than a Fortune 500 CEO. So forgive me if I'm having trouble figuring out which Jennifer Lopez is sitting in front of me today." The studio audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Sunny Hostin tried to redirect the conversation, jumping in with, "I think what Whoopi might be getting at is the evolution of your career, Jennifer. Can you talk about how you've managed to stay relevant across so many different industries?" But Jennifer was no longer interested in diplomatic answers. The years of carefully managed public relations and media training were starting to crack under the pressure of Whoopi's relentless questioning. You know what, Whoopi? I came here thinking I was going to have a normal conversation about my work, maybe share some laughs, connect with the audience. But it's clear you have some kind of agenda here. Agenda? Whoopi's eyebrows shot up. The only agenda I have is getting some honest answers for once. You want to talk about your work? Let's talk about your work. Let's talk about how you've managed to stay in the spotlight despite, let's be honest, not having a hit song in years. Let's talk about how you've managed to convince people you're a great actress when most critics would disagree. Let's talk about how you've built this empire. On what exactly? The attack was so direct, so personal, that even the seasoned television professionals in the room were stunned. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she wanted to crawl under the table, while Joy Behar's mouth hung open in shock. Jennifer's composure finally cracked. Are you serious right now? You're going to sit there and diminish everything I've accomplished? You're going to act like 3 decades of work, of fighting for opportunities, of breaking barriers means nothing? I'm not diminishing anything, Whoopi shot back, her voice rising to match Jennifer's intensity. I'm asking you to be real about it. Stop hiding behind this perfectly crafted image and tell us who you really are. Because right now, all I'm seeing is someone who's been playing a character for so long, she's forgotten there's supposed to be a real person underneath. The confrontation was reaching a boiling point, and the other hosts were desperately trying to figure out how to regain control of the situation. The production staff behind the cameras were frantically signaling, but both women were too locked in their battle to notice. You want real? Jennifer said, her voice now matching Whoopi's volume. Here's real. I've worked harder than most people in this industry will ever work. I've been told no more times than I can count. I've been underestimated. I've been criticized for everything from my accent to my body to my personal life. And through it all, I've kept going. I've kept creating, kept performing, kept building. So don't you dare sit there and question my authenticity. Hard work? Whoopi laughed, but there was no humor in it. Please, you've had more advantages than most people could dream of. You've had the best publicists, the best managers, the best everything money can buy. And now you want to sit here and act like you're some kind of self-made success story? The tension in the studio was palpable now. This had gone far beyond a tough interview and had entered the territory of a personal attack. The other hosts were looking at each other with expressions of disbelief, unsure of how to intervene in what was rapidly becoming a disaster. Jennifer stood up from her chair, her hands trembling with rage. You know what your problem is, Whoopi? You've been sitting at this table for so long, you've forgotten what it's like to actually hustle. You've forgotten what it's like to have to prove yourself every single day. The audience gasped audibly. No one had ever seen a guest stand up to Whoopi like this, and certainly not in such a public confrontational way. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what was quickly becoming television history. Sit down, Whoopi commanded, her voice taking on the authoritative tone she typically reserved for the most heated political debates. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? Jennifer's voice reached a pitch that echoed through the studio. You're the one who brought me here under false pretenses, just so you could ambush me on live television. You're the one who's been attacking me from the moment I sat down. Joy Behar finally found her voice, attempting to mediate. Ladies, maybe we should take a breath here. This is getting a little heated. But Whoopi wasn't backing down. No, Joy. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sitting here and watching people come on this show and lie to our audience. Jennifer, you want to talk about hustle? Let's talk about your hustle. Let's talk about how you've managed to convince the world that you're this great talent, when really you're just a very good businesswoman who's figured out how to market herself. Marketing myself? Jennifer's eyes flashed with fury. Is that what you call it when a Latina woman from the Bronx breaks through barriers that people like you told her she'd never break? Is that what you call it when someone refuses to let the industry put her in a box? Sarah Haynes tried desperately to redirect. Jennifer, I think what we're all curious about is your new project. Can you tell us about what you're working on? But Jennifer was done with pleasantries. You know what, Sarah? I appreciate you trying to save this interview, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is normal. Whoopi, you've been in this business long enough to know better. You've been discriminated against. You've been told you don't belong. You've had to fight for respect. So, why are you doing this to me? Because I earned my respect, Whoopi shot back, pointing her finger across the table. I didn't get handed anything. I didn't get by on my looks or my personal life or my ability to date celebrities. I got here on talent, on hard work, on proving myself over and over again. The personal nature of the attack hit Jennifer like a physical blow. My personal life? Are you seriously going to sit there and judge me for my relationships? You're going to sit there and act like every decision I've made in my personal life somehow invalidates my professional accomplishments? Sunny Hostin, who had been silent through most of the confrontation, finally spoke up. Whoopi, I think we need to pump the brakes here. This is getting really personal. Personal? Whoopi turned to face Sunny, her anger now expanding to include her co-hosts. This is honest. This is what real journalism looks like. I'm not going to sit here and lob softball questions at someone just because they're famous. This isn't journalism. Jennifer interjected, her voice now steady with cold fury. This is a hit job. This is you using your platform to tear down another woman for no reason other than you can. Alyssa Farah Griffin, who had been trying to remain neutral, finally couldn't stay silent. I have to agree with Jennifer here. This feels like it's crossed a line. Whoopi's head snapped toward Alyssa. Excuse me? Are you really going to sit there and tell me how to do my job? I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. And that's exactly the problem, Jennifer said, seizing the moment. You've been doing this so long, you've forgotten what it means to lift other people up. You've forgotten what it means to support other women, especially women of color, in this industry. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb. Whoopi's face went through a range of emotions, from shock to anger to something that might have been hurt. Don't you dare, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare try to make this about race or gender. This is about honesty. This is about you taking responsibility for the image you've created. The image I've created? Jennifer laughed bitterly. You mean the image of a successful woman who's built multiple businesses, who's created opportunities for other people, who's used her platform to give back to her community. That image? I mean the image of someone who's famous for being famous, Whoopi countered. Someone who's managed to stay relevant not because of talent, but because of controversy and marketing. Joy Behar, sensing the conversation was spiraling completely out of control, made another attempt to intervene. Ladies, our audience didn't tune in to watch us tear each other apart. Maybe we can find some common ground here. Common ground? Jennifer turned to Joy, her frustration now extending to the entire panel. Joy, I respect you, but there is no common ground here. Whoopi has made it clear that she has no respect for me, my work, or my accomplishments. She's made it clear that she thinks I'm some kind of fraud. If the shoe fits, Whoopi muttered under her breath, but the microphones picked it up. The comment was the final straw. Jennifer's face went pale, then flushed red with rage. Are you kidding me right now? Are you actually going to sit there and call me a fraud on national television? I'm calling it like I see it, Whoopi said, her voice now calm in that dangerous way that preceded an explosion. You've built your entire career on smoke and mirrors. You've convinced people that you're this authentic, relatable person when really you're just another celebrity who's lost touch with reality. Sarah Haynes looked like she was about to cry. Please, can we just take a commercial break? This is getting out of hand. But the damage was done. Jennifer was standing now, her purse in her hand, her entire body language screaming that she was done. You know what, Whoopi? I've had enough. I've sat here and let you attack me, my character, my work, my life. I've let you disrespect me in front of your audience, in front of my fans, in front of the world. But I'm not going to sit here one more second and let you continue this. Then leave, Whoopi said, her arms crossed. No one's forcing you to stay. Oh, I'm leaving, Jennifer replied, her voice dripping with disdain. But not before I tell you and everyone watching exactly what I think of you. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The audience was holding its breath. The other hosts were frozen in their seats, and the production crew was frantically trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let this play out. "You sit up there on your high horse," Jennifer continued, her voice rising again, "acting like you're some kind of moral authority, like you're the gatekeeper of authenticity in this industry. But you know what you really are? You're a bully. You're someone who uses their platform to tear down other people instead of building them up." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "I'm someone who tells the truth, even when people don't want to hear it." "The truth?" Jennifer laughed harshly. "The truth is that you're threatened by successful women who don't fit into your narrow definition of what they should be. The truth is that you can't stand the fact that someone like me, someone who you clearly think is beneath you, has managed to achieve the kind of success that you think should be reserved for people like you." The personal attack hit its mark. Whoopi's composure, which had been slipping throughout the interview, finally cracked completely. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what I've been through, what I've had to overcome to get where I am. And you have no idea what I've been through," Jennifer shot back. "But the difference between us is that I don't use my struggles as an excuse to tear down other people. I use them as motivation to lift others up." Sonny Hostin made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Jennifer, Whoopi, maybe we can both acknowledge that you're both successful women who have had to overcome challenges." "No," Jennifer said firmly, turning to face Sonny. "I'm not going to sit here and pretend that what just happened was some kind of misunderstanding. Whoopi brought me here with the specific intention of humiliating me, and I'm not going to participate in that anymore." She turned back to Whoopi, her eyes blazing with anger. "You want to know what's authentic? This is authentic. Me standing up for myself. Me refusing to let you or anyone else make me feel small. That's who I really am." Whoopi stood up as well, her chair scraping against the floor. "And you want to know what's authentic? This is authentic. Me not pretending that everyone who comes on this show deserves to be treated with kid gloves just because they're famous." The two women were now facing each other across the table, both standing, both furious, both refusing to back down. The tension in the studio was so thick, it was almost suffocating. The standoff between the two women seemed to last forever, but in reality, it was only a few seconds before Whoopi made her move. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was ice cold and carried the weight of someone who had reached the absolute limit of her patience. "You know what, Jennifer? You're right. You are authentic. You're authentically entitled, authentically out of touch, and authentically delusional if you think you can come on my show and lecture me about how to treat people." Jennifer's mouth fell open at the audacity of the statement. "Your show? Last time I checked, this show had multiple hosts, not just you." "That's right," Whoopi said, her voice getting louder with each word. "And as the moderator of this show, I have the right to maintain standards. I have the right to ask tough questions. And I have the right to decide when someone has worn out their welcome." The implication was clear, and the other hosts immediately recognized where this was heading. Joy Behar leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Whoopi, let's just calm down and finish the interview professionally." "No, Joy," Whoopi replied, never taking her eyes off Jennifer. "This interview is over. Jennifer, I think it's time for you to go." The words hit the studio like a thunderbolt. In all the years of The View, through all the heated political debates and controversial moments, no host had ever asked a guest to leave during a live taping. The audience let out a collective gasp, and several people could be heard whispering in shock. Jennifer stared at Whoopi in disbelief. "Are you seriously asking me to leave?" "I'm not asking," Whoopi said, her voice firm and final. "I'm telling you, this interview is over, and you need to go." "You can't just kick me off the show," Jennifer protested, her voice a mixture of anger and incredulity. "I was invited here. I have a contract. I have rights." "You have the right to leave with whatever dignity you have left," Whoopi shot back. "Because if you stay, this is only going to get worse for you." Sarah Haynes looked like she was about to have a panic attack. "Whoopi, maybe we should take a commercial break and talk about this off camera." "No commercial break," Whoopi said, her authoritative tone making it clear she was not open to negotiation. "Jennifer, you came here and you attacked me. You attacked this show. And you attacked everything I've worked for. You want to talk about respect? Show some respect and leave. Jennifer's hands were shaking now, whether from anger or shock, it was impossible to tell. I attacked you? You've been attacking me since the moment I sat down. You've been trying to humiliate me, to make me look bad in front of your audience. I've been trying to get honest answers from you, Whoopi countered. Something you seem incapable of giving. You've turned this into a circus, and I'm not going to let you continue to disrespect this show and our viewers. Alyssa Farah Griffin found her voice again, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. Whoopi, this is live television. Maybe we should think about how this looks. I know exactly how this looks, Whoopi replied, her gaze still fixed on Jennifer. It looks like someone who thought she could come here and get softball questions, got a reality check instead. It looks like someone who's used to having everyone kiss her feet met someone who wasn't willing to do it. Jennifer's voice, when she spoke, was steady but filled with barely contained fury. You're making a huge mistake, Whoopi. You're showing the world exactly who you really are. Good, Whoopi said without hesitation. I'm showing them someone who won't be bullied by a celebrity who thinks she's above being questioned. I'm showing them someone who values truth over politeness. Truth? Jennifer laughed bitterly. The only truth here is that you're a bitter, angry woman who can't stand to see other people succeed. The only truth is that you've used your position to try to tear me down for no reason other than your own personal issues. That was the final straw. Whoopi's face went red, and when she spoke, her voice was louder than anyone had ever heard it on the show. Get out! Get out of my studio right now! Security, please escort Miss Lopez from the building. The mention of security sent a shockwave through everyone present. The other hosts looked at each other in horror. The audience was completely silent, and even the production crew seemed frozen in place. You're calling security on me? Jennifer's voice was filled with disbelief. You're actually calling security on me for defending myself? I'm calling security because you're refusing to leave after being asked, Whoopi said, her voice now calm again in that dangerous way. You're disrupting our show, you're disrespecting our audience, and you're making a scene. Jennifer looked around the table at the other hosts, searching for any sign of support. Joy Behar avoided her eyes. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear. Sunny Hostin was staring at her hands, and Alyssa Farah Griffin was shaking her head in disbelief at the entire situation. So this is how it's going to be? Jennifer asked, her voice now quiet but filled with hurt. You're all just going to sit there and let this happen? Joy Behar finally spoke up, her voice uncertain. Jennifer, maybe it would be best if you just left. We can sort this out later, off camera. Sort this out later? Jennifer's voice rose again. There's nothing to sort out. Whoopi has made it clear that she has no respect for me, and apparently none of you are willing to stand up to her. That's not fair, Sunny Hostin said, finally looking up. This situation got out of hand for everyone. Out of hand? Jennifer turned to face Sunny directly. Sunny, you sat there and watched her attack me for 20 minutes. You watched her question my authenticity, my work, my personal life. You watched her call me a fraud. And now you're telling me that I'm the one who let things get out of hand? Security personnel had appeared at the edge of the studio, clearly unsure of what to do. This was unprecedented territory for everyone involved. Jennifer, Sarah Haynes said, her voice pleading, please don't make this any harder than it has to be. I'm not making anything hard, Jennifer replied, her voice now filled with a cold dignity. I'm being kicked off a television show for defending myself against a host who decided to ambush me. But you know what? I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of being dragged out of here. She picked up her purse and stood up straighter, her composure returning as she prepared to leave on her own terms. I'll go, but not because you're making me. I'll go because I have more self-respect than to sit here and continue to be abused by someone who clearly has her own issues to work through. There she goes again, Whoopi said, her voice dripping with disdain. Always the victim. Always someone else's fault. Jennifer stopped and turned back to face Whoopi one last time. You know what, Whoopi? I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for someone who has so much anger, so much bitterness, that they feel the need to tear down other people to make themselves feel better. Save your pity, Whoopi replied. "I don't need it, and I don't want it." "Good," Jennifer said, her voice final. "Because you're not getting it anymore. What you're getting is exactly what you deserve, which is nothing from me." She turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high, her steps purposeful. The cameras followed her every move as she made her way off the set, past the shocked audience, and toward the studio doors. Just before she reached the exit, she turned back one final time. "To everyone watching at home, I want you to know that I came here today with nothing but respect for this show and its hosts. I came here to talk about my work, to connect with the audience, and to have a good time. What you witnessed today was not a reflection of who I am, but it was definitely a reflection of who Whoopi Goldberg is." And with that, Jennifer Lopez walked out of the View studio, leaving behind a panel of stunned hosts, a shocked audience, and television history. The silence that followed her exit was deafening, broken only by the sound of the studio doors closing behind her. Whoopi, for the first time since the confrontation began, looked uncertain. She glanced at her co-hosts, then at the audience, then back at the cameras. "Well," she said, her voice lacking its usual confidence, "I guess that's that." The other hosts sat in stunned silence, unsure of how to proceed. The show still had time left to fill, but after what had just happened, returning to normal seemed impossible. "We'll be right back," Joy Behar finally managed to say, and the show cut to commercial, leaving viewers across the country to process what they had just witnessed. So there you have it, the explosive confrontation that ended with Jennifer Lopez being kicked off The View after a heated dispute with Whoopi Goldberg. A routine promotional interview that turned into one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. What did you think of how this whole situation played out? Was Whoopi justified in her approach, or did she cross the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment.